Amarillo's Halloween Nightmare, the murder of Sister Tadea Benz. Welcome back to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. I'm your host, Jay Nickel from Nickel Investigations. Today we're stepping outside of Canadian borders for our historical True Crime Tuesday series to examine a case that galvanized a community, split the Catholic Church on the issue of capital punishment, and left behind a legacy defined by profound questions of justice and forensic competence. It is a case marked by physical evidence, a disputed confession, and a tragic execution. We're traveling to Amarillo, Texas, to the Halloween weekend of 1981 and the brutal murder of Sister Tadea Benz. Part 1. The Convent and the Crime. Our story begins at the St. Francis Convent in Amarillo. This was the residence of the Franciscan Sisters of Mary Immaculate, a place dedicated to quiet service and devotion. The victim, Sister Tadea Benz, was 76 years old, a devout woman whose life was rooted in her faith. The evening of October 30th, 1981, was the last time she was seen alive. Her final hours were spent, as always, within the peaceful confines of the convent. Sometimes, after she retired to her room on the second floor, a horrific invasion occurred. The discovery was made around 7 o'clock a.m. on Halloween morning, October 31st, by another nun. Sister Benz was found dead in her bed, naked. Shockingly, despite the presence of blood in the victim's face, the nun who found her did not immediately suspect foul play, possibly believing the cause to be natural or an accident. In a tragic and critical error for the investigation, the body was transported to a local funeral home before law enforcement was ever notified. It was only an hour or so later, when the sisters investigated further, that they discovered the signs of a forced violent entry, cut window screen, and a broken, unlatched window in the first floor community room. That's when the police were finally called, arriving at approximately 9 o'clock a.m. Part 2. A compromised scene and a vicious attack. When the Amarillo police secured the convent, the crime scene investigation was already severely compromised. Sister Benz's body had been partially cleansed and arterial embalming had begun at the funeral home. Despite these immediate complications, evidence was collected at the scene: bed linens, the victim's nightclothes, and crucially, a kitchen knife recovered from underneath the bed. Fingerprints and palm prints were lifted from the knife's handle and blade, and from the bed's headboard. A second weapon, a steak knife, along with the cut window screen, was found in the convent driveway. The subsequent autopsy performed by Dr. Ralph Erdman painted a picture of extreme violence. The findings included multiple injuries and contusions to the head, stab wounds to the chest, abrasive injuries to the front and back of the neck. Most critically, the official cause of death was determined to be manual strangulation. The autopsy also revealed evidence of forcible rape, including external bleeding, internal trauma, the presence of sperm and prostate secretions in the vaginal contents. This was a brutal crime that shattered the tranquility of the convent and sent a shockwave through the deeply religious community of Amarillo. Up next, the suspect and the overwhelming evidence. Part 3. The suspect and the overwhelming evidence. Just over a week later, police arrested 17-year-old Johnny Frank Garrett. Garrett lived directly across the street from the St. Francis Convent. At 17, he was considered an adult for criminal responsibility under Texas law. The prosecution built what the courts later described as an overwhelming case against him, based on a convergence of physical and testimonial evidence. Number 1. Prints. Fingerprints and palm prints lifted from the kitchen knife found under Sister Benz's bed, as well as prints from the bed headboard, matched Johnny Frank Garrett. Number 2. Hair evidence. Pubic hairs recovered from the crime scene were determined to have the same individual characteristics as Garrett's. Number 3. Weapon match. The steak knife found in the convent driveway matched the manufacture, design, and apparent degree of use as another steak knife recovered from Garrett's residence. Number 4. Witness testimony. Garrett was seen running from the direction of the convent on the night of the murder. Number 5. Confession. During pretrial incarceration, an inmate and trustee named Lonnie Watley testified that Garrett had admitted to him eventually that he had broken into the convent and killed the nun. Furthermore, police claimed Garrett gave an oral statement, later denied by Garrett, admitting he entered the convent, choked the nun until she passed out, and had sex with her. Garrett testified in his own defense, denying the rape and murder. He claimed he had broken into the convent 2 days before the murder, looking for items to steal. Then he placed his prints on the headboard while reaching for a cross on the wall. His testimony was contradicted by Sister Bernice Nogler, who stated that the cross Garrett described was not above the headboard, and that nothing had been reported missing. Garrett was quickly tried, convicted of capital murder, and sentenced to death. Part 4. The path to execution and lingering doubt. Garrett's conviction was affirmed by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals in 1984, beginning along a complex appeals process that would reach the federal level. Key issue in his appeals, including the one heard by the Fifth Circuit Court in 1988, centered on the initial forensic examination. The defense argued that the state pathologist, Dr. Erdman, had violated Garrett's due process rights by failing to test the entire vaginal content sample for the assailant's blood type, or preserve enough for the defense to conduct its own blood typing. The defense position was straightforward. If the assailant's blood type differed from Garrett's, the evidence would have been absolutely exculpatory. The courts ultimately denied this claim, ruling that the pathologist, who later came under scrutiny in other cases, was not required to perform specific tests, and that no evidence was technically destroyed, as the entire sample was used up in the tests that were performed. The case gained international attention, leading up to Garrett's execution. Calls for clemency were loud and numerous, citing Garrett's troubled past, history of mental illness, and most notably, the fact that he was only 17 when the crime occurred. In early 1992, the Texas Catholic bishops issued a statement urging that Garrett's death sentence be commuted to life imprisonment, citing their opposition to capital punishment and concerns over omitted evidence. Even the Franciscan Sisters of Mary Immaculate, the community to which Sister Tadea Benz belonged, asked for forgiveness and mercy. Perhaps most famously, Pope John Paul II personally asked for clemency. Despite this extraordinary intervention, the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles voted overwhelmingly to retain the death sentence. Johnny Frank Garrett was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit on February 11, 1992, at the age of 28. He remains a figure at the center of a perennial debate about judicial certainty, forensic missteps, and the ultimate irreversibility of the death penalty. The murder of Sister Tadea Benz remains a powerful example of a historical true crime case that, while legally closed, is far from resolved in the court of public opinion. For Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast, and our historical True Crime Tuesday series, I'm Jay Nickel. Thank you for listening. Because every case deserves answers, and every victim deserves justice. Subscribe now to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. Episodes available wherever you get your podcasts.